Hey guys, so a new video, and before we actually started, I wanted to say a huge thanks to our newcomers who came from the Lawrence System channel, with which we recorded a video last week and we talked about basically a Zabbix and monitoring idea itself. So we have a lot of new people here, and if you watching right now are again a new people to this channel, if you are interested in the how-tos, manuals, explanation, use cases, and all about the Zabbix monitoring system, then just don't hesitate. Click subscribe. You will find a lot of interesting videos about these topics. So getting back to our video, it's nothing new. I've already had a video about this topic, and the topic is a database partitioning. The problem is my first video about a partitioning was indeed one of the first videos of this channel, and I've made a couple mistakes in the settings of the screen recorder. I've recorded the video, I uploaded it to the channel, and well, basically after 1 week I was told that hey, there's a lot of frames are missing, the audio is not synced with the picture, and it's simply not possible to follow through the manual and understand the things. So finally, after more than a month, I guess, I've deleted that video, and we're recording a new one. The partitioning of the database, and in this case it will be MySQL database. So what is partitioning and why do we need that? We don't need that. Partitioning versus housekeeping. That is the way how you want to clean your database from the events, from the historical value that are older than you want to keep inside your database. This strictly affects the performance of your Zabbix instance because small differences, housekeeping, scan of tables, slow in big databases, locks, tables, partitioning, quick, does not affect the performance. I would say those are the main differences because, well, the housekeeping, which is run by the housekeeper, psx grep housekeeper, is internal process of the Zabbix, and the only task of this process is once per hour scan the tables inside your Zabbix database and delete historical entities and some of the other stuff like events that are older than you want to keep them. And that is happening based on your front-end settings. For how long do you want to keep trigger events, discovery events, item history, item trends. And Housekeeper is scanning the table based on the clock column. If it is older, then delete. Scanning obviously takes time. And the larger database you have, 20 gigs database will run a lot better than 200 gigs database. It also affects from the specs of your computer, your server, how much memory you have, how much CPU cores you have, how fast disks are you running the database on, and what are your database configuration. Did you tune your database properly? So in the end, when you have not the most powerful server and your database is not tuned and you're running on a slow disks and your database weighs 500 gigs, the housekeeping process will be slow. It will run for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, it will be locking the tables for all of that time, and that will cause a performance issues inside your Zabbix, which again will cause a lot of false positive alerts and slow queries in the log file of the Zabbix server, and many other bad things. Partitioning, however, is basically a third-party solution how to delete the data. It's a third-party script. And all you have to do is configure a partitioning on your database, and all of your data will be stored in the partitions. Let me draw something. Let's say that would be a simple database with all of the history. There is a history, more, and each time a housekeeper has to connect to the database, scan all this, find everything that is older. So it has to go through everything and delete the stuff that is older. However, partitioning is based on the days. So for each days, we have a partition. And that is forming already when you are writing the data to the database. And then we have a third-party script that is running daily and checking that if we want to keep 3 days of the partitions, and now I have 6 partitions, that means that I need to delete these ones. And that is happening a lot faster, and it's not locking our database. So let's get back to the actual configuration, how we need to do that. We have a database. I have a database. It's MariaDB in my case, but the same guide applies on all the other MariaDB versions and also the MySQL. You will also need to open the page zabbix.org. Not complicated. Zabbix.org, and then search for MySQL and MySQL partitioning with external management script. And basically we will be just following some of the stuff from this page, but not all of it. So let's start scrolling. We don't need this, we don't need all of this information. Partitioning was a little bit different in previous versions of the Zabbix. Like a year or 2 years ago, it was common thing to partition also the events table, and you can see all the other tables. Nowadays, in the new Zabbix version, a lot of those things are optimized, so basically you need to partition only history and trends tables. That's it. We don't need this. And there are 5 tables from the history. History log, history string, text, UINT, and there are 2 tables for the trends, and you will need to configure the partitioning for each of them. Here in this page you can find information how to partition database with internal procedures of the MySQL and with the third-party Perl script written by the Zabbix company, and we will be using this. So coming back, what do we have here? Basically everything is explained. Because of for Zabbix 1.8, we don't have 1.8, so we can skip it. Because of foreign keys introduced in Zabbix 2.0, next queries have to be additionally performed to partition all the suggested tables in Zabbix 2.0. That's old, we don't have it. 2.2, nope, skip it. For Zabbix 3.2 and later versions, any of those changes listed above are not required. So we don't need all of this. Now it's time to start partition for each table. As partitioning is usually performed for a database with existing historical data, you must partition the existing data you have in your database. Let me just check. Yeah, I should have some data inside. So we need to select what is the oldest entry inside our database. So I will go to my database, use ZabbixDB, and execute a query. Select from Unix time and selecting minimal clock from history UINT. Basically, we need to do the same for history, for the history log, history string, and all of other tables that you want to partition. So normally those would be 5 history tables and 2 trends table. I will do the guide for history UINT. So I have a data for today. It's kind of obvious because, well, I've just created this instance and I just created this database. So what do we need to do next? Just copy paste this somewhere in your notepad and alter table history UINT. This will be the table, which means that you will have the same command, almost the same, for the history UINT, for the history underscore string and text, and same for the trends. For each table you will have to execute this statement: partition by range. by clock in this case. And clock is a column in our history tables, a time when the value was collected. Based on that, we will create a partitions. Then, based on what is the oldest data in your database, you need to edit, delete, add these lines, because I am creating a partitions from 2019. In my case, I have a data only for this day, the 10th February. So 02, 10, and values less than 9, 02, 11. Basically, that's it for my case. I would have to delete it and execute just this line. Click enter. Then I can create, I can type show create table history UINT, and I can see that I have one partition for this day. If I would have the oldest historical entry since yesterday, then I would need to write another line. It will be a comma. This would be from not 10 but 09. This would be not the 11 but 10. And then I would have another line change the year 02. Since here I have 10, so this would be 11. No, this would be 10 also, and this would be 11. 02, year, 11. So your numbers would grow 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 10, 11, 12, 13. Based on what's the oldest entry in your table. So the more history data you have in the table, the more lines you would have in this elder table command. And you need to run it for each table. So in my history UINT where I've run the command, I have a partition now. And if I would run show create table just history, I don't have a partitions here because this table is not partitioned. So next, let's open our documentation, partition table by a month, and that applies on the trends because that's the common way how the partitioning is done. For the history, it is partitioned by days, so each day of history has its own partition. And for the trends, we're usually doing that for a month. Each month of the trends has its own partition. So let's do it again. Alter table trends UINT, so a new table, partition from 2019 02 and values less than 2019 03 01. Close the brackets, close this. I am moving all of the historical data from our trends UINT table that is less than next month. So basically all this month, the February, to the partition. Copy paste, done. 15 values recorded. Show create table trends UINT, and we have a partition. 2 tables done. Well, basically you would have to do 6 more, or no, 5 more. 5 more tables. But that's enough for the guide. At least you know how do you need to do that. Next, let's continue. Example commands for manual partitioning. We don't need this. Partition with stored procedures. We don't need this. We won't be using internal procedures of MySQL. We don't need this for something verifying, creating. Nope. We need this this one. Partitioning with an external script. That is what we will be using. So basically just copy paste all of the script. Control C, and I will quit the database now. I will move to temporary folder. That is a Perl third-party script for the partitioning. So vpart PL and copy, nope, copy paste the script, add an execution permissions to it, and if this is a completely new instance for you and you haven't even tried to configure a partitioning before, you will be missing some of the libraries for the Perl. So if you would try to execute the Partition PL script, you would get failed to execute, cannot find something something. And I've wrote down you need to install these two packages. They are available in the default repo of the CentOS and of the Red Hat. This is absolutely clean installation. I've already installed them. So just yum install. Yes. See, all installed. I don't need it. You definitely need it. And Perl datetime also. So after you've installed these libraries for the Perl, we need to do a couple of modifications inside the script. So open partitioning Perl script and let's see what do we have here. A DB schema, that is a DB name. In my case it is also Zabbix, so that's absolutely fine. The location of the socket, that's the default one, so if you don't have any custom locations of the sockets for the MySQL, this will be fine. Username, I have pretty simple, the Zabbix, and a password also is Zabbix. Those will be the credentials which will be used from the script to log into your database and perform the partitioning operations. Then a tables, specify for how long do you want to keep the history, 30 days of the history. Everything that will be older than 30 days will be deleted. And then same for the trends, except if we had a history in days, the trends is in months. So here you specify that you want to keep 2 months of the trends. If you want to increase or decrease any of these, just go ahead and change the value. Comment next 5 lines if your partition Zabbix database starting from 2.2. They usually used for Zabbix database before 2.2, so we don't need it. And we will, as just like said, comment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. Escape. Amount of the partitions. This parameter specifies how many partitions this script will create for the future, because you have a partitioning, you are deleting old ones, but at the same time it is mandatory to have a partition for today. If this script will not run and eventually you will run out of the future partitions, the Zabbix won't be able to write a history inside a database. And you will have a lot of entries in your log file that partition was not found, cannot write information to the database. So you need to specify how much days ahead you want to create a partitions in the database. Let's keep the default value 10. The current time zone, well, pretty straightforward. Then let's go lower. Don't need this. MySQL 5.5. So based on which version do you have, you need to comment these lines. See, for 5.5 we use this, for 5.6 we would use this, so on comment and comment. And again 5.5, 5.6. Important information, if you have a MySQL 8, the newest release of the MySQL, it is also working. The script is working inside MySQL 8, except you need to get rid of this function. Sorry, not this one. Let me find. Yeah, actually this one. Check have partition, because these functions we're checking is the partitioning enabled in your database engine, and the problem with MySQL 8 is that it is enabled natively. you won't even find a plugin name partitioning, and so that's why this function would always fail, and you would get an error message running the script that partitioning is not enabled, but actually it is. So if you're using MySQL 8, simply comment out this function, and then it should be fine. So that's about it. We can save the script, so I've made the changes. Then let's check once again. MySQL, use Zabbix, show create table history uint. I have one partition for today, and in this partition I have my data. So let's run the script. Partition PL, it executed pretty fast without any messages. Let's go back to the database, use Zabbix, show create table history uint, and you see I have 10 partitions for the future. Tomorrow I would run the same partitioning Perl script scheduled by the cron job, and if I would have some of the partitions older than 30 days, the script would simply drop it, and at the same time script would create partitions 10 days ahead. That's why it's super important, so you have this script partitioning Perl configured with a cron to execute daily, and you really need to make sure that the script is running, that somebody didn't change the password in the database, and let's say the script is not able to log in anymore, and when the partitions will run out, your Zabbix instance will stop to collect the data. So this is very important. So I guess that's it. And I really hope that we won't have to record a third video about a partitioning. Just like usual, if you have any questions, any comments, suggestions, whatever else, you can leave them in the comments. I try to answer all of them. Thank you for attention, and have a good day. Have a good luck. Thanks. Goodbye.